Everyone, this is Mindy Eggen. Today I'm creating a cozy winter card featuring the warm mug stencil and die set paired with the Snowy Hillside embossing folder. I'll walk you through how I blended some soft inks over the embossed background, added muted winter tones to the mittens and mug, and brought everything together with some simple dimension. All of the supplies I'm using today will be linked down below in the video description for you. The main supplies that I'm going to be using for my card project today is the Snowy Hillside 3D embossing folder, the winter mug stencil and coordinating die set, and for sentiment, the tree plate greetings stamp and coordinating die. The first thing I'm going to do is take a piece of white cardstock that's cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to place it inside of my embossing folder. Now, inside of this, you can kind of see where the scene is laid out. So that is where I'm trying to line up my cardstock. And because I tend to be a little klutzy, I'm going to just tack that down inside of the embossing folder with some tape. This way I don't have to worry about my cardstock shifting as I move things around. I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cut machine to do the embossing, so I have my 2 main platform pieces plus a shim, and then I'm going to place my embossing folder on top of that, kind of tilted at an angle so that it doesn't catch that top edge real harsh. And then I'm going to place the packaging piece over the top. And that seems to be a really great sandwich for these 3D embossing folders from Simon Says Stamp. Another great thing about having that tape in there is that if I find that maybe the embossed background didn't do as good of a job as I had hoped, I could always flip that back down and run it through again, but the first pass really did a great job. I'm going to do some light ink blending over the top. I wanted this scene to kind of be more of a subtle texture and more of a setting for the rest of my project. So I am taking some Dew ink. This is the lightest color in one of the trios that I listed at the top of the screen. And I'm using a large blending brush to just apply that color, going very light-handed. And you're going to notice that the raised areas are going to catch the ink a little bit more, which is actually really nice. It kind of helps it pop from that background just a little bit. I will set my background off on the side and start working on the actual focal point, which is going to be this warm mug set. I found it helpful to first die cut the coordinating die from a piece of white cardstock. This just made it a little bit easier when I was lining up the stencil, but you could use the stencil just on its own if you wanted to create a 1-layer card. I'm going to place my cardstock piece on top of a sticky mat that's going to hold it in place while I do my stenciling. And then I'm going to bring in the stencil, which is really a 2-piece stencil. And on the stencil, there are etched words on there to help you figure out what piece goes with what. The first one I'm doing is the mittens, and that's a great place to start. It's kind of the largest area or more of the focal point of your design. And I am going to mask off the areas above and below. Just from experience, I have learned I need to mask off some of these areas. I am using Trio 33 from Simon Says Stamp Pawsitively Saturated Ink, and this is the lightest color out of that collection. This is Periwinkle. I'm going really, really light-handed over the gloves. I wanted to keep everything in kind of these soft winter tones. Then after that's done, I'm lining up the second piece for the gloves, which is going to give you some definition to the thumbs and also add a shadow area. Again, I am going to just mask off some of those areas, and I'm going to bring in the darkest color out of that trio. And then for this, I'm going to use a smaller blending brush. I'm also tapping off onto my glass work surface to get rid of any excess ink so I don't come in too harsh. If you come in with too much ink on your blending brush, you could have your ink pooling in the corners of the stencil. For the cuffs, I am going to be using flannel, which is out of Trio 30, really, really light-handed. I just wanted a little bit of color there without making my sleeves look dirty. And now I'm going to move on to the actual arms that are going to be kind of coming out from the bottom of the card. And this one is Mist Ink. Again, light-handed. And you can see that I'm holding the head of the brush mainly because I really want to have a lot of control over my brush so that there isn't a lot of pressure. Next is going to be my actual mug, and for this I'm using the darkest color out of that trio, which is Raindrop. Again, just kind of going really light. If I want it to be darker, I can apply a little bit more pressure. Moving on to the inside of the mug, which can be coffee, it can be tea, it can be hot cocoa. I am going to be using Trio 10, and this is the lightest color. This is Latte Ink. just doing that centerpiece there for my mug. I'll remove this stencil, place in the second layer of the stencil, which is going to make it look like there's a little heart on there. And I am going to use cocoa ink. So I really took a step up and made that nice and dark. And you can see how it gives that little heart shape in our drink. Then for the steam at the top, I'm going to try and use any leftover ink I have on my gray brush that I used with the flannel ink earlier. This is all I'm going to add to my mug, but there is a portion on the stencil where you can create some marshmallows in those. So I just wanted you to know that that is an option. I'm going to work on my sentiment next, and this is from the Tree Plate Greetings stamp set. I love how small it is, yet I think it is very versatile because there's a lot of different fonts on there. They're all in that kind of nice strip, small strip that I really like to use on my card projects. So I'm stamping this in a VersaFine Nocturne ink using my Misty, and then there is a coordinating die for each of those sentiments. So I'm going to just use some tape to hold that die in place and run that through my die cut machine. Now, even if I'm going to pop up my images, I like to still add a layer of cardstock behind my sentiment and also my project. So for the mug, I did just one layer. For the sentiment, I did two layers using my liquid glue. I'm creating a side folding card base with a heavyweight cardstock, so I scored that at 4 1/4 and reinforced that fold with my bone folder. And then to make sure that my background is secured to the front of this card panel, I am using some double-sided tape. Then after I remove the backing from that double-sided tape, I can line up my embossed panel over the top, making sure to really push down around those edges. I have found just over time that the edges like to try and come up sometimes, and because I used double-sided tape, I'm not really getting that warping from a liquid glue. I'm going to pop up my mittens using some foam tape, and you notice that I do have my sleeves kind of extended there down towards the bottom. I'm going to trim that off with a pair of scissors just to get rid of that excess line towards the bottom. And then I also popped up my sentiment with that thin foam tape as well. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope this cozy winter scene inspires you to create something warm and comforting in your own craft space. If you enjoyed this project, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. And all of my supplies are linked in the video description down below and also over on my blog. I'll see you again real soon. Here's another video I think you might like.